So I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about Image Grand Design. I was gifted a copy for review purposes, and Ed Piskor and Jim Rugg did their own review in the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, and I really don't want to be redundant and talk about the same things they talked about. I just wanted to spend maybe a few minutes talking about what really resonated with me. And I have to say that the story goes, and everybody knows, or most people know, that Ed and Jim on an episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe came up with this idea of image grand design and threw out some ideas. So there's a group of creators, close to 30 or about 30 of them, that thought, hey, this is a great idea. And they picked up the ball, and in my opinion, they ran it straight into the end zone, scored a touchdown. This is a very satisfying, well done graphic novel. This is a fan project. It's made as a labor of love. But besides that, you could tell that they're having fun with it, but they're trying to make the best comics they could, and I think they did a great job with this. My hat's off to the creators that were involved and all the work they did, but I especially wanted to give credit to Eli Schwab, who was the publisher, and Rocco Jerome, who was the editor of this, for making this holistically a great book. Individually, the chapters are fun. Overall, it's very satisfying. And I think in a lot of people's hands, this would have been a train wreck. So the fact that a large group of fans working on Zoom calls, working late nights, during a pandemic, during all the things that were involved personally for everybody during the pandemic, or, we're still in it, but, especially in 2020, this is just a great testament of what creators can do when they set their minds to something. Everybody that was involved in this should be very proud of what they did, no matter what they contributed, large or small. So that's my overall feeling when I read this. This is a lot of fun. This book is full of deep cuts, and not just image deep cuts, although there's a ton of them, but there's also deep cuts in other comics and other media. And if you're really knowledgeable about the Image comics and you read them in the 90s and the early 2000s, you would get a lot out of this book. But I bet you could give this to 3 people with similar knowledge and reading experience, and they would all pick up little different things the other ones didn't pick up. This is deep cut after deep cut after deep cut, but it all flows really well. It's so subtle that, for the most part, that it's part of the story. It's not like, okay, we want to throw this in here because that would be cool. It's part of the story. Again, just really well done. So, and it starts off, I'm going to give some spoilers here. It starts off with Super Tiger, and he has a battle. And at the end of this battle, you realize he's killed by Jason Wynn. And Jason Wynn in the early Image universe was like the Lex Luthor, Doctor Doom kind of guy. And so, he was like the puppet master trying to take over the world. So it's a great intro to him. And just throughout this entire book, there's different art styles, different storytelling techniques, different homages. Like here, to me, this is the Akira pill, So I enjoy that. Rick Lopez did some great work here. He's got a comic called The Power, which is really cool, and gives me Ditko vibes when I see it. And I don't say that lightly. And then when it comes to Spawn, you have more of a Spawn type of art. Just interesting, well done little homages. Here's Ed, I think. He's Jim, I believe. And so you just go through the history of these stories. And then what they do is that they actually start to extrapolate it. So you could have, this is the origin of Super Patriot. And then they extrapolate it. So you end up having fights. There's Trencher from the Ted McKeever days when he was doing some Image. Again, this is to me, is an homage of the Akira, that energy bubble. And so you just have all this going on here. And it's just really well done. You have these fights that you couldn't see in the real comics, or quote unquote official comics, because, everybody's got to protect their heroes and they can't be made to look weak and they all got to live and all that stuff. It's sort of like pro wrestling where, nobody can do the job because it's going to make everybody else weak. They also have some satisfying, conclusions to some of the characters, in that here's some great black and white work. And then you have this battle here with Battle Rock where he just takes him out with his eyes. And then here's a joke about him saying, he's referring to somebody with the word bub, because you know this is like a Wolverine clone. And so overall, it's just great pieces of storytelling. There's gory violence like you would have in an Image comic. This is a possible end scenario for the Max, where him and Julie are in this diner and they're surrounded by the Walking Dead, because the Walking Dead earlier are brought into the universe as part of that virus that Jason Wynn was like, I believe in, I forget which story it is, but storyline, but there was this virus, so they made that part of that virus. And so here at the end, he comes back and he tells Julie, hey, listen, there's too many of them. I'm going to fight them off and you go out the back. She's like, what about you? And he's like, hey, you know, I'm going to do what we all do someday. And so he kind of gives his life and he's satisfied with that. So that way Julie can escape. And it's a really nice, satisfying end because it's true to the character. And it's like he goes out, but he goes out like a hero at the end. And just other great art. But what I also like about it is like, well, here's this great Spawn Savage Dragon fight where like Savage Dragon kills Spawn, but then like his head gets cut off, and so like they both die. And this is the way you do it, so none of them look weak. Like one gets killed, but then they both die. And then here's where you have your Walking Dead reference and this little homage where like Rick's partner is the Savage Dragon, and they, you know, do the intro with the Walking Dead. They said, and now we're the Walking Dead. And they're like, and I like this part, like, whoa, wait, is that it? I'm like, no, there's other things. You have Saga, you have Paper Girls, you have Deadly Class, you have Invincible. And then you have these little homages like, you talk about the Walking Dead, but said some souls finally get their rest because at least at some time, the original Spawn was dead. And there's a little homage to Death of Superman. And then they have a new hero rides into town, and that's Street Angel, and this shot of them going into Pittsburgh, and then they back up. So to me, it's a really well done story. They have interviews and they have sketches, and then just some really dope art here. And then at the end of everything, you have Ed Piskor doing a 3-page story that's sort of a spoof on the Levi's 501 Jean commercial that Spike Lee directed with that early Rob Liefeld style of art. And then you have a Extreme Team 2-page poster by Jim Rugg. And then you end it off with Jim Mafu throwing in this great 2-page kind of like kayfabe ad. Again, this is just, it's really nice. And if you want to pick it up, I think Gutter Pop Comics is selling physical copies. I don't know if they're just doing it for walk-ins or doing it online. I don't know what the cost is either. I do know that you can buy the PDF of this, and I'll have a link for that, for $5. I bought the PDF, and I think for $5 you can buy a crappy comic from IDW, Boom, especially if it's like a new licensed product, Marvel, DC, you know, Dark Horse, or you can buy a pretty good comic, a fun comic for $5. The production quality and the art is really good, and the physical package, the PDFs look great, large sizes of the files. So if you have $5 and you want to read something fun and entertaining and seeing what happens when creators do a deep dive in a product that they're in love with, this is the book. It's a lot of fun. And so I would recommend that if you're familiar with the Image characters from the 90s, you can, if you're just familiar with them, you'll get out of it. The more familiar you are with them, the more you'll get out of it. But overall, there's something for everybody here. It's not just like you have to be super steeped into Image lore to understand it. You'll get more out of it. But then again, if you're not, you're still going to get a lot out of it. Anyway, that's it. Just wanted to spend a few minutes. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.